We're live. We're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Uh, I'm super nervous to have him here today. You know the man, you know the legend, you know his work. We got here Aaron Ross himself with us today. And I hope that you guys in the audience are super eager to learn just as much as I am. We got some special, see, I'm already stuttering. I mean, that we have something really special prepared for you guys today. So, Aaron, welcome. I can believe it. How are you,
Yeah,
guys? How
Fernando,
are
actually here. I know we're in a world tour. Actually, I'm in Edinburgh, Scotland. Where are you? You in Brazil or?
Yeah, I'm in Brazil. Ever last, ever, forever hot Brazil, you know?
Yeah.
Have you ever been here?
Oh, yeah, I've been a bunch of times. I'm coming back next month for the Zoho Summit.
But
And
on
then
vacation. Vacation. Always on
no,
work, but
just
about
work trips.
vacation.
Yeah, just work trips.
You gotta come to enjoy, you know?
Oh,
Beautiful, beautiful landscapes.
yeah, at some point. No, all the kids are like, when do you take us to Brazil? Like the trip is too long yet. When they're older.
Yeah. But you've been all over the world, so you've seen everywhere.
A lot
All
of places.
right, everyone. Yeah. Is everyone ready? Tell me if you're excited. Leave a like here on this video and leave your comment. Are you excited? And more than that, I have a real question for you guys. How many of you have tried to implement parts of predictable revenue in your company? Did it work? Did it work more than you expected? Drop a comment here.
Or worse, a lot of people do it poorly. Or
Yeah.
not for every company either.
You gotta know not only you gotta know what you're doing, you gotta know how to do it. You know, that's one of the most crucial steps in every process.
And also, I think it's kind of died down, but there's always every few couple of years, the, predictable revenue is dead, stuff on LinkedIn. And like, I think that's died down.
Exactly. Yes. Talking about performance, process, and so on. I heard a lot of talking about phantom growth. Has been talking about that for quite a while now. Care to elaborate on that? What does it look like in sales today, and what you do to avoid chasing hype that doesn't last?
Yeah. I know, funny thing is, so, I've been talking about, there's a bunch of years where I was like, oh, I'm never writing out a sales book. And, that's changed. I actually have a bunch of books in the works now. They're not all sales, but one of them is tentatively called, first it was calling Ghost Revenue, now called Phantom Revenue. Of course, don't know what the final title will be. And I'm doing this with Tiago Muniz, who's CEO of Receita Previsível in Brazil, my partner there. But the idea is there's something which has always been a challenge for executive teams and teams. But the thing is, it's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And, I was thinking about, I'll see companies or help companies and the CEO or the executive team is just like working hard and but they just can't seem to, fix growth, restart growth, or kind of resolve their internal problems. There's always they can never quite get the right people on board and for them to do the right things in the right way. It's just, and I think, our culture, especially in the States and the West, tends to be, how do you get the right things done the right way? Like execution, but there's this execution trap. And now I can't say there's been a tipping point, but what I'm seeing is the inflection in terms of what's getting in the way. There's a bunch of factors which are getting in the way of execution, that people are kind of missing these layers, right? And they won't be new, but when I explain them, so, if we think about these three layers, at the bottom is execution. Can you get kind of the right people on board to get the right things done the right way? And if you struggle, more often than not, it's not like how you're working. And it's not about working harder, which is kind of another default. It's like, well, there's these other two layers that Tiago and I are calling. The first one is external noise. And the second one, internal tension or internal friction. And what I see is that the external noise is usually it's from social media. It's not just social media. It's just compare and despair. All the noise out there in the world. It's usually compare and despair, which is I'm not doing what they're doing. Why are they doing well and I'm struggling? I'm doing something wrong. And then also sparkly things. Oh, that's cool. I got to do that. Oh, they're doing that. Right? They're posting on YouTube. I should do that. Well, they're doing AI outbound. I should do that. Well, someone else is doing remote. So this external noise, unless you're very centered, which honestly most people aren't, or even if you have been, the world's always changing. It can throw you off and kind of get you confused about what should you be doing, and are you doing the right things for yourself and your team? That's the first one. Second one is internal tension or internal friction. And I've seen this, which is because of technology, the gaps, the cultural divides, the differences and the diversity within a team are greater than ever. So there's more, it's harder to work together as teams. You've got greater generational divides between people who are, 40s, 50s, and say 20s or 30s. There's more political divides in terms of politics, and there's more work style divides, hybrid, remote, in office. So there's just more diversity, which can be helpful, but most of the time it seems to create more of a problem. And I don't mean diversity in terms of race. I'm talking about diversity in terms of, again, are people remote or in person? Are they Democratic, Republican? Are they, there's one I'm missing. Do they have kind of like the work hard ethic? Or do they have why would I work hard for something if it doesn't make sense yet? Like, show me something meaningful, then I'll work hard. And this is creating a lot more conflict. So again, between the external noise and internal friction, you have all these issues which are getting in the way of what are we going to do? Who are the right people to do it? How do we get it done, and how do we get it done the right way? So that's this idea coming back around to phantom revenue, which is chasing all this, like we spend so much energy chasing phantoms versus just being hyper realistic around what do we have? It's not even hyper realistic. It's very maybe centered. Like who am I as a leader? What's my team like? What's my business like? What do I need to do? And to kind of strip away all the shoulds. I should do that. They should do this. They should be like this. I should be doing this. That's all. It's just getting in the way of figuring out what's actually going to help people grow. Whew, that was a long answer. I've never actually shared that live before. So there we go.
That's great. As I used to say, there's no easy answers to anything. Why is the sky blue? It's not just because. There is a long and complex answer for that.
Well, let's say it's
just as it is in sales.
Maybe simple answers that aren't easy. That's a classic, right? Just how do you be healthy? Well, eat your vegetables, exercise, and sleep. Simple, but not easy.
The basic, well done.
Going back to now, how do you grow a company? Kind of, have a product that, some people love, like know your customer, have good people. I mean, you could, whatever. So eat your vegetables, sleep, and exercise. But, it can be hard, right? It's a confusing world that's getting, there's incredible opportunity, which also can be, the advantage is opportunity. The challenge is overwhelm, right? You can hire anyone now from anywhere. So like access to incredible talent, but it's harder to work remote, and also there's less loyalty, right? So
exactly.
The world is changing, and I think it's hard for people, and whether it's anybody, to adapt at the pace things are changing.
Talking about adaptations, and you talked about a lot about, how can I say it, leadership behavior. With that in mind, what are early warning signs leaders should look for when hype overtakes substance, per se?
Yeah, I think there's something about, that's a great question. Stress levels. There's these energy levels that people have, right? But let's talk about leaders. And if you have a business, or you have kids, when you have something you really care about, you're going to be stressed sometimes, maybe a lot. But there's, I think, a difference between kind of stress when there's uncertainty but you have stuff to do versus something doesn't feel right. And I don't know what it is, or I don't know what to do. And so I think a lot of this gauge is for someone who's excited about something and they have regular kind of building stress, right? Because any entrepreneur, I mean, as a parent, right? You pretty much, most parents, I'm going to have a baby. They're going to be toddlers. They're going to, grow up. Of course, but there's stress along the way, which is getting people dressed for school, or like how do we deal with food? And there's like regular, everyday stress. Or I would say, when friends ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, oh, there's just regular everyday fires, right? You're just like regular firefighters. There's not like an extraordinary fire. And I think as a leader, it's kind of gauging, do I have like regular fires I'm dealing with? Like, there's people stuff and product this, or is there some sort of existential like emergency fire, which is, I'm afraid, here's a specific example. I think a lot of, I'm thinking about leaders I work with, the fear of being obsoleted, right? The company's doing all right, but they're so scared of being obsoleted and things are going to pass them by. They get incredibly stressed. Their nervous system completely dysregulated. And so they just rush. You sort of you default back to your fight or flight patterns. And for some people, that's like rushing around, making very fast decisions, which honestly aren't very well thought through, wasting your time. Like it's almost like a chihuahua chasing its tail in circles. Or if some people might be more of a deer in headlights, which is kind of, it's really hard to make any decisions and you're just kind of like blocked. And so if you know yourself well enough to see this is the hard part, or you can have a team or people who care about you enough to kind of help you see that you're in one of these patterns. That's the point where something's actually wrong at a deeper level than the regular everyday, fires to fight and challenges.
Basically, something is draining you more than it should. Solve that first.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's hard. I think other things are hard is if you work for someone and you see them, they're always, the victimhood, which is always blaming other people, other things, I'm sure you can come up with a bunch of, I think it's hard to tell, like there's kind of regular, just human challenges. But how do you know when you're kind of in a crisis of this and whether you're on track or not? So I think it's, to me, a lot of it actually is going to be how executives need to kind of spot and learn how to like regulate their nervous systems. Right. Because if I digress, we're entering a world where, with AI can kind of do all the basic stuff and execution. It gets lots of things wrong still, but who knows how. So a lot of just like, hey, getting things done, setting goals and delivering things, like a lot of the left brain stuff, I think AI will be able to take care of. But so what leaves kind of the right brain stuff, if you want to differentiate yourself, in a world of infinite copycatting where people can just copy your products, your markets, maybe even you with clones, because there's going to be, they've already had unauthorized, people cloning famous, like Tim Ferriss, right, or famous people and putting them in spam ads to market their stuff. So if you have this infinite copycatting, how do you as a person or company differentiate yourself? How do you stand out? What can't be copied? And I think the stuff that can't be copied will be stuff that is more right brain. I could be getting this wrong. I think there's right brain, which would be really three types, relationships, intuition, and creativity. And all those, there could be more. Those are the three I really think about, and for me have really been helpful in AI. And those things, if you have a dysregulated nervous system, right, you're so stressed you can't think, you're going to block, and that can be very effective with people or terrible with people, very creative or intuitive. And sorry, by intuitive, what I mean is the ability to make decisions, like breakthrough decisions, despite basically, think of it as ability to make great decisions despite the data, right? So everything is telling you to go one way, all the data, and you're like, that's wrong. We got to go this other way. Like that's intuition. And you have to have that in an AI world if you want to succeed.
That's perfect. That actually reminds me of something else because when there's a lot of things going on, you're full of stimuli, especially if you're a leader and you don't have a clear sight of what's going on, what you should solve and where you should go. Is there a clear tell or are there clear signs that could tell the difference between real growth and a phantom spike? Can I look at that thing and tell I shouldn't go that way, I should go this way? Is there something like that?
No, I think it's tricky. Well, the thing is, if you have, the SaaS companies, there's some companies that have more durable recurring revenue models. Like SaaS companies and businesses tend to have, they're going to, for lots of could happen in the future. But if you have contracts and, you're unlikely to, lose those quickly. There are exceptions if you do small business. There's other companies where it could be consulting or even AI companies, which can be more easy come, easy go. There's a lot of these companies that do AI that, grow incredibly fast, but we're not sure if they're going to be able to last because if something better comes along, it's so easy to switch. Like the switching costs are far lower too. So if you have a company, and wouldn't it be nice to have some, I wouldn't call it phantom growth, like to actually have some real growth. And then I think the trick is you just have to be thoughtful, move quickly. But hey, is this an area, if there's something growing, like is this something we can take advantage of and triple down on it? Do we think this is good for the business and the model? Do we feel like it's, a distraction? So I don't know, the world is just changing. It's going to change a lot. And no one really knows what's going to happen. So I'm not as concerned about phantom spikes in growth. I think I'm more concerned about if there's problems that come up that are recurring. So a phantom problem, again, if you are a CEO and you've had trouble keeping your executive team, I was like, these recruiters, like after 5 executives have left and you're like, these recruiters are terrible. They can't get me, I hire someone, they last 9 months and they leave. Like these recruiters, they're wasting my time. What's the common thread here? Is it the recruiters? If it's, 60 days, maybe, but like, if you keep having high churn and you put 3 different or here's the other example, right? Tech companies that have a VP sales come in and they fire them after a year because growth doesn't start. And they do that again and again. And they're like, wait a second, you've had 2 or 3 heads of sales and no one's been able to fix it. What's the common thread here? So it goes back to, are you trying to deny reality? You're trying to be like, look, be as honest as you can with yourself and your team. What is the actual problem here? Maybe which layer is it? The noise? Am I trying to chase companies that are growing at 100% a year, and that's not me. That's external noise. At the second layer, which is an internal friction, which is, I hire people, but I keep hiring the wrong people, or I'm a terrible manager, or I can't set real goals, or I can't work with people, or whatever it is. Is it that the problem? Because it's probably not the execution. If you can't get those other layers right, execution is just gonna be even harder. So I think it's hard for people to take accountability for themselves. And this is like a life lesson, but yeah, it's like to get out of the victimhood of blaming everyone else, the recruiters or the customers or the investors or the spouse or the kids or this, that, the other, and be like, what if I try to look at this with clear eyes, with some lucidity, like what's the actual situation? What's been the problem? What can I do next? And do that just every moment, every day. It's tricky.
It is. It can be a lot harder when you're in a situation and you can't see the how to solve the problem. Actually, it would be good to have someone from outside looking in. So, would you say that community helps in that aspect, in that way, like a society of CEOs? So a peer could review what you're doing and keep the community alive and helping each other, or would you say it's more like a solo problem?
Yeah, no, I think anytime you can have other people, like you have to have other people help you to see other people. force you to kind of exposes your blind spots if you're open to them, right? Unless you're someone who's just going to keep blaming everyone for your problems. These other people could be friends, family, children, coworkers, executives, board members. Anyone around you can help you see yourself better. I've got 10 children. I'm married with 10 kids, and the image I have in my head is that having such a big family, or having any family, because it doesn't have to be big, it's just like a grindstone. Everyone's just constantly grinding on each other, all the rough edges off, and like it never stops. But the person I am after 15 years of being married with kids, I'm so much. It's like that grinding doesn't feel good. Opening my eyes to things and myself and others, but I'm much more, better leader and a person, as father, everything else for it. So you have to have those people and people you trust, and but you also have to be open to, look, if you're having problems with your life, and this could be in health, in business, but here we talk about sales and growth. Ultimately it's the CEO's responsibility. And if it's something's going wrong, it's easy to blame other people, but that's usually where it stops. Who hired, a bad executive? Who hired them? Who communicated with them? Who helped them set their goals? Who didn't do X, Y, Z? Like, starts with the CEO.
Unfortunately, sometimes you're the problem, so gotta have help.
Honestly.
And gotta keep an open mind for that as well. You guys in the audience, let me know, have this ever happened to you? Have you ever been the problem? How did you solve it? Tell me here in the comments. I love to know to get to know your experiences a little more.
Or work for someone who couldn't see it. Might be easier.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the hard part, is when we're the problem, it's so hard. We have these blind spots, and the definition of blind spot is when it's so hard to see yourself.
That's when every spot gets blind. So that's a real problem.
I did see, in terms of culture, Thiago and I got to give him a lot of credit, being talking about how does the next kind of version of culture evolve with leaders and people. Oh, by the way, are you escalating the questions, or is someone, pushing this up? I see the question pop up. Fernando, should we?
We actually will have some time at the end for some Q&A, so we're actually gathering those questions. Don't worry, guys in the audience. We'll have them answered. So, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just thinking, it's going back to a lot of the new book. We don't have it mapped out, but a lot of the guiding principles are going to be more on people, these layers, blind spots. There could be nervous system regulation, culture, company culture, people. And a lot of this because, when you have AI, things like playbooks and mechanics and funnels and metrics, that all, not only is that all going to change quickly, but it's all less relevant, and there's two reasons for that. One is it's easier to build a framework than ever. You still have to test it and get it to work for you, but okay, there's frameworks, you can just look up frameworks, but there's also so many, like the variety in which frameworks can work. We have is where you have small businesses, and every single type of business, like the number of frameworks that can work or should work, they can be personalized. So it's harder to say, hey, here's one framework. So I think it's more, the direction would be kind of, again, we talk about the layers, and here's what gets in the way of what you're trying to do, and how to build a culture, and then how to kind of define frameworks and metrics and things that work for you in a more fluid way.
Exactly.
Rather than say, here is like the framework, which is kind of how it used to be. And there could be, now I think about it, I guess there can be a framework, more of like, look at your, your values and your people and your this, the other. But what I'm saying is, I don't, maybe in the book we put, like here's an example of a sales process, and here's the metrics and some of that. But I think it's going to be a different sales book. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we're aiming to really help people in the AI age, which is changing right now. So it's going to be, if it's a new age, should be a new type of book, not just the same old type of sales book. Very different than predictable revenue.
It's changing and it's changing fast. But one thing that we gotta keep alive, and we actually mentioned it a little while ago, is culture. As you often say, culture is the operating system of predictable revenue. So, how do you see culture creating competitive advantage for companies in general? You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. Competitive advantages always comes from your people. They might build great products. Like so, you could say it's from products. You can say it from this, but it still all stems from people. And again, when you've got an AI age where you're going to tend to have a lot of the left brain stuff, like just the basic work stuff, there it could be handled by AI, or at least mostly by AI. And it's really more about amplifying your good people. So you maybe have some agents doing the simple stuff, and you've got some hopefully great people, and AI is amplifying them. And again, your differentiators to me would be, relationships, which includes people, but, basically relationships, intuition, creativity, because a lot of the other things could be copied by AI, right? That's why a lot of SaaS companies are scared, because they know it's not that far until these coding companies, people can kind of just say, hey, just create a CRM for me that does, like, copy, go into my Salesforce instance, copy what they do, recreate one for me, and I have to pay for. Like, it's not that far away. And so when that type of technology is more commoditized, when a lot of services are going to be commoditized, what's left? You've got brand, again, relationships, culture, and people. So, and then again, I mentioned, with so many different types of people and geographies and remote and in person and values, having a culture where you can, we say is the best kind of culture would be a growth culture, which combines your challenging people, right? So they have meaning, they're interested, they're engaged, but you're also caring about them as people. You're forming bonds where they feel cared about, that they're part of a team, that they're not just a cog in a machine. And what we've seen already, but also I think this will stick regardless of what AI does. I mean, this is going to be important, because no matter what happens with technology, relationships will still help you, whether they're with your employees or customers. But it's your culture then is kind of who's on the team, how do you work together, how do you amplify yourselves with AI, how do you retain the people you've got, how do you draw new great people in. And again, that culture will be like a radio station, so if AI amplifies your vibes, that's going to get amplified to your market. It's going to get amplified to your customers and to your recruits. And so that culture, which is kind of, I think, like, it's almost like a vibration, how you work, that is going to help define, your growth and everything else that comes out of it. So I think a lot of cultures are too harsh. I mean, first of all, you got to find a culture, as a CEO, like, it's all about finding a culture that fits you, that works. It's like diets, you could be vegan, you could be carnivore. There's not like a right one. You got to fit you. I think there's lots of people and executives who aren't sure what that is. And so again, balancing this, having a challenging environment where people are, learning things, and it doesn't always feel good all the time, but caring, where again, it's not cogs and machine, is, to me, like a foundational approach towards culture that we're going to be expanding on in the new book.
That's perfect. I even got my voice ran out. That's perfect. I love the part where you talk about culture, and no, I mean, you did talk about culture your whole answer, but you mentioned something that really impacted me, and you actually said it before, about respecting SDRs and treating them as owners, not just junior roles or an entry role or something like that. You mentioned something that just now that remind me of that. So, with that in mind, how does cultural shift, this cultural shift, impact long-term results? Valor, really appreciating SDR's roles, giving them the importance that they have, or which importance do they have? I'd like to hear you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, just unfortunately, a lot of companies don't have basic respect for their people, whoever they are, SDRs or HR people or janitors. I just think that's unfortunately common in a lot of cultures, maybe in the States, not all, but it's just like basic respect for people. And I think that it's easy for a lot of companies to think, oh, hey, with AI, we can, or we already have laid off a lot of our entry level jobs. But so not really thinking through, well, where's your career pipeline going to come from? I'm just going to hire people randomly, and like SDR type jobs, or keeping some entry level jobs could be really important, not just for the work of the job, but for a pipeline of people to come in to get to know them. They're getting paid to learn. They're contributing. You're testing them in an early area to see how they do. It's a lot less risky to promote someone you already know from SDR to salesperson than it is often to hire an external salesperson from scratch. I think recruiting is it's already really hard. It's just going to get harder. And so I think don't miss an opportunity. Don't sacrifice your long-term kind of people, great people at the expense of just making a bit more money today. That's an example of, valuable entry-level jobs that are important. They might need to evolve, but they're still important to have, I think, for companies that have an eye on the future.
Awesome. So when you sum it up, culture isn't also about slogans, it's about execution, it's about what you do and how consistently you do it, whether it's weekly metric reviews or leaders staying close to customers or giving SDRs clarity and ownership and making everyone aware of their roles and valuing them. Those cultural habits, they are what make predictable revenue engine sustainable. Would you say that?
Yeah, because I know people, when everyone's kind of stressed and busy, they're like, just give me the hack, give me the answer. What do I do? Right? Show me the system. What's the email template? What's the AI agent stack? Culture, I can't, culture, that's too, it's too squishy, or it's too long-term. I need faster results. Yeah, but if you have a culture of just doing quick fixes, and that whether they work or not, you're like just implementing quick fixes, versus a culture where you're challenging people to come up with like better ideas and to be able to volunteer their ideas. Because ultimately the improvements in the business, when you have these days, it's not like 10 or even 20 years ago where you come up with a great idea and it'll probably work for 5 years. Nowadays, you might have a great idea and it might work for 5 months. At least that's the direction we're going. And so more important than the ideas or like just getting some fix is, do you have a culture of people who can see a problem, whether they're junior or senior, speak up, like, hey, we have this problem, what are we going to do about it, and be creative in solving it. And then do that again and again and again, because the change is not going to slow down. It's only going to keep accelerating. Right? We're not going to the chaos in the world is not going to go down. It's only going to go up. So for the companies who are stuck on, I'm too busy, and culture takes too long, they're the ones who are going to struggle the most within the near future, versus the ones who are like, if I can develop a culture of people who can see problems and solve them without me doing all the work myself, like and involve a team that can evolve itself, like that is going to be kind of the holy grail for the future. My first book, which actually was called CEO Flow, Turn Your Employees into Mini CEOs. But like that's the future, is if you can have a team of kind of mini CEOs, and like whatever problem comes up, they can solve it. But it's hard to do that, and people don't like to do it, and it's still new it's a new idea. So it's still uncomfortable. People are still focused on like, just, I need the answer. Like, what do I do? Just tell me what to do.
Exactly. As you mentioned, it's not just a fix, it's about consistency. Just like going to the gym, you can lift the heaviest of loads in one shot and never go back again. You're not getting results. Do it for a year. See what happens. Perfect. Now, I like to link that to something quite related to it when you said before that skill isn't the same as knowledge. In your experience, how do salespeople go from knowing what to do from actually building the skills that make them successful? And which skills should they pursue? Not exactly which skills, but how they should figure out which skills to go after.
Yeah. Well, I think that, again, a theme here is a lot of businesses, and of course it depends on the market you're in. If you're in utilities, there's going to be slow moving industries still. But for a lot of our audience, I'm nervous for a lot of the workforce because a lot of people out there are they're just slow to adapt and slow to learn. And the people you're going to want are going to be salespeople, but this is true of any function, who are agile at learning, can learn new things relatively quickly, and they're not as resistant to change. Look, it's easy to say that. People resist change all the time. And so just because you're good at a skill and then you learned it somehow doesn't mean you've got the knowledge to apply it in different situations. Right? So it's possible that you have learned how to do public speaking. I'll show you a sales example. Like, you're amazing at demos on Zoom, right? But as soon as you invited to go do a demo into a room full of live people, you freeze. You can't do it. So just because you have the skill of demoing doesn't mean you have the knowledge to apply it in a variety of situations, right? To be able to adapt no matter what happens. And likewise, so we see is that Tiago and I are, the labels could change, but we're talking about this term competency acquisition now. And our vision isn't that everyone gets automated away by agents. That's not going to happen. And our vision isn't AI this, AI that. It's really thinking, okay, when you have a team of salespeople, doesn't have to be salespeople, but let's stick to salespeople. And when AI is like a new utility, you don't even notice it because it's just part of things. How does that change? What's the opportunity there? And going back to the beginning, we talked about the layers around external noise and internal friction and execution gaps. Well, really why a lot of companies struggle to implement new projects or with consulting or their own projects is because of these different gaps, right? A CEO is like, our competitors put in a new CRM system in 3 months. We need to do that too. When in reality, probably, you might need like 9 months. But it's like, but just because I saw it on social media, it must be true. So going back to, what is it? How can AI really solve some of these problems that have been around, but in a bit of a creative way? And so, for example, I get this a little bit wrong. Competency acquisition is really about combining kind of like some insights and consulting or services along with technology, so that you can try to implement changes in a company that might have taken 7 months in the past, but now it might take 7 weeks. And mostly because it can take months because of complexity, but also because of people's resistance to change their habits. But with AI kind of underpinning a lot of new practices, you could go in, step one is golden data, right? Because you need like really clean data. So what does that look like? And then adaptable activities, right? Activities that are adapting based on by themselves, based on who you're talking to and what you're doing, or qualified pipeline, and so on. There's some of these sales stages that are kind of thought about like when AI is really part of it. But some of the things are like self-managing teams, self-evolving teams. But the point is, because you can use these tools to spot leakage within the teams, and how are people learning the habit? Are they learning the new skill? Are they applying the new skill? You can spot that very quickly. And so our theory, we've already done some of this, but we're still evolving with the AI tools, are, again, use AI to speed up skill acquisition. So, and not just the changes in process, but the way the team can adapt to the process, because that's usually the slow part, habit change. And turn it from skill acquisition to competency acquisition, right? You've got a new, it could be tools, you've got a new process, and you've got the people who are almost like amplified in a way to learn it much faster than they normally would, because they can have instant feedback, help, and it's like a competency accelerator. So that's our vision for right now. I know we're still shaping it up. It might sound like a lot, but it's blending. Again, the idea of you have an idea for a project and the classic consulting implementation steps with AI. So AI is not like it's not like a magic solution. It's like bringing everything together, people, the ideas, the kind of consulting steps, and AI tech together to have the best of all worlds.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot about AI and external noise. I'd like to sum up all these things together and consider that with AI, automations, new technologies coming up every day, which competencies do you think salespeople most need to sharpen today that weren't as critical back in 2011, or they don't even need that anymore?
Yeah, there's something about, to me, personality. I've noticed is that, we've been interviewing, I'm helping a company I'm on the board of, recruit for a customer success leader. And a lot of people we talk to are honestly, they're just kind of boring. It's like they've been doing the corporate world for so long, they've like lost their spark. And, okay, corporate world can be boring, but it doesn't have to be. And a lot of salespeople, it's easy to get caught up. This has been the work culture, right? Just you get so used to doing the job that you kind of lose touch with like who you are, what your natural curiosities and interests are. Do you have hobbies? Like, and even work culture, let's not talk about hobbies and don't tell jokes. And it's like, we need to get down to business and like make money. And I think it'll always be there in some ways, but for a lot of people, especially if they've been a bit older and they're probably 30s, 40s, 50s, relearning how to, I know it sounds a bit cliche, but kind of be more themselves in whatever they're doing, which could be writing. I mean, don't just take like the AI writing is pretty dry. Like, it's fine, but we're getting to the point where it all just sounds the same anyway, right? Think about LinkedIn. You go on LinkedIn and it's all like, here's how my N8N stack drove 1,000 visitors a day, and I closed a bunch of business. Or here's how my other stack did this. And first, I don't know if I believe it all anyway. You can post anything you want on there, but it just all blurs in the same, And then the other one, everyone sees this, right? Here's my stack that generates all these opportunities or automatic YouTube stuff, and like comment playbook to get it. I've done that like 5 times. I've never gotten anything. So, we're not yet at the point where we're habituated to all the AI stuff, but we're going to get there. So going back to how are you going to stand out for yourself? So that is, how do you express yourself? On video, yes, through email, through text, all those mediums. Because I think, again, that's going to be something. A lot of the skills can be helped with AI, but if you have lost touch with who you are as a person, you got to kind of figure that back out.
That's philosophical.
Practical. I mean, I can see why it might be like kind of high level, but like if I'm interviewing people, I'm not even sure. I don't know who are these people. They're just going through the motions.
Yeah. Basically, it's just, at the end of the day, just treat people as people, talk like a real person would talk, not like, hi, my name is Fernando. I would like to da 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 da.
Yeah,
This.
I'll give you an example. I had a guy today doing an interview, and yeah, he's very nice, and he had kind of like his slides, and he did like a script. But I said, look, I had this thing come up. I have and I have to cut our call short by like 7 minutes, and he couldn't get off his script to just like talk to me. He would just like stuck to the script. You could call that a skill or like lack of a skill, but I think that was more of him just being so unused to being a person talking to another person and being himself. He got caught with the fear of, I don't know, whatever it was, but it didn't go well.
Yeah, maybe it is a skill, but it's such an entry-level skill, for those who never deal with sales before, they gotta learn that first before they evolve. So
yeah,
everyone there got their own pace.
Yeah, I would also say,
Oh,
look, along those same lines, last few months, I've been actually having more fun than I've ever had in work with AI. Like, just like creating stuff. I don't, it's annoying to like use it for editing and things, but like to create new ideas and create things. I'm just like, oh my, this is going to be so interesting. And that, it's like, I don't even know. So many like brands of coffee and these like writing stuff, all these projects I'm doing, I'm just like having like, actually it's fun creating this stuff. And what I
mhm.
know is that, it's things I'm naturally interested in and I'm having fun with and I'm engaged in. That is going to lead to, like things I am honestly curious about and I want to get better at and I want to make awesome. That is going to do better than people who are just going through the motions because, you know, it's a job and they can't and they're just doing the minimum because it's like they're so used to it. And I've been there too. I was there, a few years ago. I can tell the difference. So this is the type of stuff where it might, whether if it makes sense now, great, but it will in a few years when everything's been commoditized, all the regular work and regular, people doing, who aren't like in tapping into their own natural curiosities and their networks and who they are, what they want to do, and to be able to connect with people. Everyone else is going to be commoditized.
It's the circle of life. Now, as we approach our final minutes of this incredible meeting, I'd
Yeah.
like to know from the audience, what do you guys think so far? Don't leave just yet. I got another question for you, and then we can move into the audience questions. We talked about AI a lot, not only today, but we talk about AI in sales today everywhere. How do you see teams balancing human insights with AI so they don't be they see beyond the obvious, They they can pass that barrier.
Yeah. I don't, I think it's still so early. People are still so obsessed with, obsessed. It's still, how do we automate the stuff we've already been doing? Because we're doing it. So how can we do it better? And we haven't gotten into is the zone of AI enabling new kinds of work that we didn't really have before, which I don't know, that's not that far away, the way things are moving. And so I still think it's, um, on LinkedIn or the news, companies like I mentioned who, hey, we're going to get rid of all our, entry level functions. We're going to get rid of customer support. We're going to automate everything with AI because it'll be cheaper and better. And then I'm blanking on the company. It wasn't Duolingo. It was one of these companies that we're going to be AI first, right? And then later they're like, oh, wait a second. We do need to add some back. Like we went too far, right? We do need like AI, it's great for some things. It's still not great for others. We do need to, you have humans for some part of customer support so I think we're still in this experimentation period. I would say I was really excited, this last week or two. I was like, oh, I'm going to use AI to kind of design this, I call it content factory to help automate, I like writing books and creating books. I don't like posting. Anyone who follows me, like I don't post much because I don't like to do it usually. And like, okay, this is gonna be cool. I can lay it out, I can use AI to configure N8N or Zapier. And then it was really fun, like designing this and thinking about it. And they started to implement it. And oh my God, it was so painful because AI, in terms of the implementation, was getting so many things wrong at every step. I totally understood when they say a lot of engineers, developers who use AI, like the gains are a bit of an illusion because there's so much like rework and fixing it. Like I had that. I just was like this. Every single step had problems. Like oh my God. And so, we're still in this weird period where people and teams are experimenting with how's it going to fit. Humans are always going to be incredibly important in sales, in marketing, all these steps. There are AI agents will be too. It's just going to keep evolving. Anyone who thinks AI is going to free up a whole bunch of people's time is just wrong. You look at history. Any new technology always changes the work. The work it never goes down, it just shape shifts. So it'll be just as much work next year and 5 years for people. There should be new jobs. And so, I think that this imbalance between AI and humans at work is we'll just kind of sort ourselves out by trying stuff out. And again, I feel like I'm a lot smarter now by using AI. I'm happy to talk about what I do, but a bit more worried about it's going to be just an ever bigger divide between the rich and the poor, and it'll just widen the gaps in the culture wars. So I think AI will help a lot in some ways, but create a lot more problems in the world culturally in other ways.
It's gonna happen organically, and just like it happened with the Industrial Revolution, new jobs will come up.
Yeah, they may be. See, there could be a lot of terrible jobs. There will be more, but yeah, it's like every technology, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and especially in the States and a lot of countries, it's not good for the community. So we'll see. Nobody knows. Robots.
We're here to try to avoid that. Sorry, we're here to try to avoid that, making the poor get poorer. So let's try to make less people poor. That's the idea.
And I'm sure there'll be some entrepreneurs who start companies who trying to figure out how to employ a ton of those people. Like that'll happen, and they will.
Yeah.
And hopefully they make decent wages. And I think that the cost of living crisis, everyone around the world, it's people are struggling to pay for whether it's housing, utilities, basic when you have kids, it's like I don't see that. I don't think that's going to change. I think that's just going to continue.
Yeah. It's the circle of life once more. Now, for our audience, here's the moment you waited for. I have a sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, sorry. We will bring up some questions from the audience. We got a good one here. What's the number one cultural mistake you see sales leaders making when they try to scale? That's a great one.
Yeah. It's a good question. I think that there is just so many problems. Like the companies I've been with, I'm on the board of or talk to, they just underestimate the amount of going back to the first idea. And this is why it's the first idea, are these 3 layers, the effect of all this external noise, the internal tensions, and how much those impact execution. It's not just as easy as hiring someone remotely who's a leader of sales and then getting them to do their job. So I think it's just underestimating the impact of these other layers. And again, AI and social media these problems have always been there, but they're bigger. They're getting to be bigger and bigger because AI and social media amplify the external noise, right? And they amplify these internal cultural tensions. So I think they're underestimating. So what happens is they think they're ready to grow. They're like, we're going to grow. And they don't realize they're not ready to grow. And sometimes that's because of the product. And so they're trying to, they're pushing the gas faster on a car with flat tires.
Gonna make a lot more effort to get it done.
To get that car moving with flat tires. And they're too busy to stop to pump the tires up. So,
yeah. Next question is from Atahualpa Maya. This name sounds familiar. I just saw today that the new sales process is based on intent instead of volume. Can you elaborate on that?
I don't know. Is this one like I did a new sales process, with Tiago, and he might have posted it. So I don't know if that's the one you're talking about. If it is, so I was thinking about what would a sales funnel of the future look like? And basically, let's see if I can I share my screen? Maybe. Let's see if this works. If it doesn't work, then.
Yeah, you should have a sharing button here.
Okay.
Next to
I'll try it.
Next to your camera settings. See if you got it.
All right. And okay, here we go. Maybe I can only share the my browser. Well, I'll just describe it because okay.
Sure.
So it's because the current funnels are just going to look different. They're not going to be so at the top it's like signal generation, right? And then signal filtering, and qualification, and then AI assisted messaging and calling and so on, and at some point kind of human and AI decisions. And so I think that it's not going to look like 1,000 activities to 200 responses to kind of first meetings, just because the number of ways people can touch and the amount of volume, right? Because with AI, you're going to have kind of head towards infinite messaging volume and noise. So in the messaging, measuring activities becomes a bit meaningless when you're sending messages through, maybe like WhatsApp and LinkedIn and YouTube or chat or email and all these channels. So the way we measure that, it's going to have to be different. No one really knows, and that could be a few years away. I think you just have to be flexible with what, creative around, like, what are we trying to do? What can we actually measure? It might be different than before. And what are the steps? And it's probably not going to look like a lot of the classic sales funnels.
Yeah. As you mentioned, it could take a few years, it could take a few hours. You never know when the next revolution will come up, Next is from Slumber Frog. About the problem, it's not actually a question, it's just a comment. At some point, I became clear I was the bottleneck. Admitting it was the first step toward finding a solution. Exactly. That's great that you got to do it. What do you think? So not everyone have this skill,
I mean, I wish, a lot of people, and the more executives or anyone who could take that kind of attitude, it's hard because our ego gets in the way, or also if it's a true blind spot. Sometimes we just can't even see it.
You're way too biased.
Yeah, it's like you can't. Sometimes you just can't. You're not in a place to see it. So, but yeah.
Next and last one. I'm sorry, you were saying?
Do you have a way? I loaded a couple pictures into the studio. Do you have a way to show those?
Just saw it. Sorry.
Okay,
There it is.
Okay, there's that one. This is just a work, but the other one, there we go.
Okay.
So this is just me just playing with something that could be different, and the metrics will be different. And it's not about this is it. It's just, hey, we just have to be ready to be adaptable. And, it's like the playbooks that used to work, we can't rely on them working in the future. So how do we think different? That's why, again, the book we're thinking about is like, how do we come at this from a different place? Because, writing a book about playbooks today could be obsolete in 6 months. So what kind of book's really going to help people?
Yeah. It's not only about reading about that or understanding that strategy. You got to know when and if applying those strategies at what point, So be aware, guys.
Yep. Exactly right.
Next question, and actually, I think that's a gold one. Any tips for building a culture in a small startup where everything is moving super fast?
I think it's really anything you could do to bring in the best people you can, right? Because that makes everything else easier. And if you have people where it's not quite a fit culturally, like everything is harder, even if they have the right skills. Like sometimes you need to hire someone who has like skills that you just can't learn quickly. Like if enterprise sales, you cannot learn within a few months. But I think for a lot of other jobs, I would rather hire someone who's like the right attitude. It's not about whether they're young or old. Do they have the right attitude, right? The right energy, ambition. They, like to learn. They can figure things out. That type of person will advance past someone who's got experience, but not the same attitude pretty quickly. And so along those lines, going back to if there's ways you can create some kind of entry level jobs to get to know some younger people and like keep an eye on them, because everything's moving super fast. Like that's really it, is the people you have on board will make it way easier, way harder. So what can you do to kind of ensure you've got the best chance of getting a good fit with those types of people?
Awesome one. Basically, you got to be in sync with everyone.
Yeah, and then when you're not in sync, be able to fix it with them, because you can never be in sync all the time, right? Just learn to say I'm sorry,
Exactly.
work it out, hard conversations, all those fun things. Anyone who's been in a relationship will understand.
Yeah. Well, that was super fun. I learned a lot. Hope you guys in the audience learned as much as I did. Aaron, would you like to take this moment to advertise something, maybe?
Sure. I mean, it's not ready yet, but we are creating the next book that's actually coming out. It's called Income Operating System, and it's going to be out in English in, I think, end of this year. And then we're aiming for actually to come out in Portuguese in 6 months after that. So that is it's really for just people who want to make more money in ways that to make more money regardless of kind of what happens. It's like how to blend the having jobs, freelancing, and investing into a system that's a bit more kind of flexible and adaptable. I mean, right now it's called Income Operating System.
I'm already excited to read this one.
Yeah, it should be great. Let me see if I can upload a picture. Oh yeah, see if you can activate it. The green one.
The green.
Yeah, I just put it up there. Yeah, there you go.
Switch it.
So I got a bunch of books on the way. Like AI for me has been a huge unlock with creativity. I've got a bunch of cool ideas, books, other things, and other fun cards, coffee, other things. So.
This one's with Camila Farani. Yeah. Nice.
Yep.
She's kind of famous here.
Yeah, she is. The title could change. This is not fixed. We're close to being done, but this is the current book underway.
Awesome. Everyone in the audience, you already know what you save in your favorites for the next months. So, Aaron, once more, thanks so much for being here. I'm super honored to have you. If you guys want to learn more about sales in general, AI especially right now, follow Aaron in every social media. Would you like to where people can find you and how? You're on LinkedIn, you're on Instagram, you're everywhere.
Yeah, probably LinkedIn is generally the best. Just LinkedIn, /in/Aaron Ross. Or I should put my email on here too. I don't really have a great way, or I have a Substack, which is Fresh Air. Fresh Air-Substack.com. I'll put in the link here. Oops.
There it is. Let me pin that for a second.
Thanks, yeah, my links are not going through. They're getting blocked, but yeah.
Don't worry. Also, you guys can find the Arrow in every bookstore out there.
Amazon.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we have a bunch more good ones coming over the next couple of years. Got 5 books underway in different stages.
Wow. He doesn't stop, guys.
I know. Well, I didn't write for like 10 years, so I've been saving up. I've been composting all my ideas like a mad gardener, and now I've got some energy and time, and AI is helpful to flesh stuff out and do covers. Not write them, but yeah, just to help things along.
Awesome. Super excited for those. Thanks, everyone. Also, follow Snowville in every social network. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. And stay tuned. We're going to have a lot more webinars with a lot of special guests in the near future. Thanks, everyone, for being here, and great sales, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Fernando.
Thanks, Aaron. See you, everyone. Bye-bye.